modelling specialist. We'll get into it straight away. An advisor looking at making additional superannuation contributions on behalf of a client prior to retirement. So I thought what I would do in this particular case is actually dive into the goals modelling tool to actually demonstrate this on a step-by-step basis. So I'm going to dive into this particular client, Ron and Jackie. These are fictional clients, but what I'm about to present to you reflects the nature of the case study from earlier this week. So let me just open this up for you. I've done very little pre-preparation in terms of the inputs into the modelling tool because I always want to take the opportunity to demonstrate how new scenarios and strategies can be created in a very straightforward way, just to reinforce the functionality of the model. $23,000 in the bank. You can see Ron here has a bit over $1.4 million in super. Jackie's already got an allocated pension in place, and they have a joint managed fund of $421,000. So that's basically what is currently in place. And what the advisor would like to do, you can see here on the timeline, Ron is currently age 63. So what the advisor was looking at doing was investing and contributing $300,000, taking advantage of the carry forward provisions, transfer money from the managed fund into superannuation as a contribution. So let me take you through what the advisor did. So I'm actually going to create this scenario from scratch. I'm going to call it GMS number 1. Here we go there. And I'm going to add an action. And what the advisor actually did in this particular case was go into existing non-super investment, picked the action withdraw from a existing investment. This obviously opens up a self-configured screen. Go into show details, went into the managed fund, wants to extract $300,000 from this, so we're going to reduce that to $121,000, and we're going to save that. That's releasing $300,000. And what the advisor actually did in this particular case was actually dive straight into the super fund and added the $300,000 straight away to the super fund. There we go there, to represent the contribution into super. Just double checking, I've zeroed out the unallocated funds. I saved that, and obviously what that has done immediately is that's created a single representing the transfer of money from top-notch investments, non-super, and it's put the money into superannuation. Obviously, what we can do is double-check that by going into the projection screen, and we can see that the $1.45 million has increased to $1.8 million, representative of the $300,000 that has gone in, plus some extra growth until the end of the year. Okay, now, when I saw that happen, I'll be honest, I didn't like it, because you may recall from training that we made a great big song and dance about the fact that when you are doing a strategy such as withdrawing money from a managed fund and contributing into superannuation, you really ought not to incorporate that in the one action, because all I have here is one single action titled withdraw from an existing investment. And that's not in actual fact what we're doing. We're actually withdrawing money from an existing investment, and we are making a lump sum contribution into superannuation, and that is not apparent in regards to what's being created. It really ought to have been split into two distinct actions, and there are so many advantages associated with that. So what I'm going to do here is go and clone that straight away, and I'm going to call this GMS number 2 to obviously demonstrate the alternative way in which this can be demonstrated. So I've gone into that, I'm going to add an action, and now I'm going to demonstrate the way that I would demonstrate this particular overall strategy for the client. So I'm going into existing, I'm still doing the withdrawals, so let me be a bit more precise on this one. I'm recommending that they jointly withdraw the $300,000. I'm going to reduce that. $300,000 has been released, and I am going to put that into the bank account, $323,000. That's all been zeroed out, zero unallocated funds, and I'm going to say that one particular action, and that action will show itself as being withdraw money from an existing investment. That doesn't actually end my strategy, my overall strategy. I'm going to introduce a new action called superannuation contribution, make a lump sum non-concessional super contribution for Ron, and I'm going to do a contribution of $300,000 straight away. So I'll just leave that at 2018. And there you have it there. I now have two separate actions to reflect that strategy. Now, what are some of the advantages of what I've just demonstrated compared to the original way that the advisor was reflecting exactly the same thing? Any ideas from anybody?
John, you've actually got like an audit trail to see what's actually happened and makes it easier for ACT to put together the advice?
Absolutely, yeah. In terms of then ACT looking at this, they can see the two distinct transactions and exactly what you're actually employing. Absolutely. I would also suggest to you that in terms of a trail, I think it's also much better for you as well. Imagine if you were doing this weeks in advance or days in advance, and you're looking at this one and you're looking at one singular action, and then you have to go, oh yeah, show details, what's happening here, money coming, oh yeah, I can see what I'm doing. Okay, that's all very well and good, but imagine from your perspective, looking at it this way, saying, oh yeah, withdraw money, make it, oh okay, immediately a lot more clearer. And also imagine it from a client perspective. I know that we make a great big song and dance about this in training, but I think it's worthwhile just revisiting that. If you prepared something for a client in advance of a review or a meeting, imagine the story unfolding and that you're unveiling to them in regards to, well, Ron, what I'm recommending is that firstly you withdraw money from your managed funds, and if there's any, I mean, this is a 5-bar client, so the changes aren't all that apparent, but I'm withdrawing money from an existing investment, and I'm recommending number 2 that you use that $300,000 to put it towards a lump sum non-concessional contribution, and you can talk about the withdrawal from an existing investment and the contribution in 2 separate lots. So I thought I'll just highlight from a point of view in terms of you explaining the overall strategy to a client. The other thing to keep in mind is that later on this year, we will be releasing the fact that goals plans for many of your clients will be much more highly automated. And that automation will be reliant on you splitting out the actions relating to a client in exactly the same way that you would actually be conveying that in a statement of advice. The statement of advice will actually say, firstly, we recommend that you withdraw $300,000 from your joint top-notch investment. And the second action is we recommend that Ron make a $300,000 lump sum non-concessional contribution into his Cloud9 super fund in the year 2018. So the whole construct of actions is purposely designed to support the automation of the production of advice documents in the future. If you roll it up into one, that's going to make no sense whatsoever in regards to statements of advice which are automated in the future. So I thought I'll just highlight that as well. Now, the other thing I want to highlight at this point, we can double check this, we can go into the projections, and we can go into this and, oh, hold on, what's going on here? Ron has got $1.725 million in super. That is very, very different from the very first strategy that was doing the same thing, which was $1.8 million in super. $1.8 million doing the $300,000 contribution versus the $1.725 million. Well, I have to confess, this had me perplexed as well. When the situation came up, we were trying to account for the difference. And the difference lies in this. If you remember, obviously, from all of your training, I'll just go into the slideshow, you may recall that Ron had more than $1.4 million in superannuation. He does not have the ability to make carry forward contributions of $300,000. His non-concessional contribution cap is actually only $200,000. What the goals modelling tool has actually done in this particular case, where I have established this as a standalone pre-configured contribution into superannuation, is that the goals modelling tool has actually recognised that I have exceeded Ron's non-concessional contribution cap. I've exceeded it by $100,000. And what the goals modelling tool has actually correctly done is that it has reduced the amount of money in the superannuation fund to account for the tax associated with the excess contributions, thereby creating much more accurate projections and much more accurate goal achievability associated with that strategy. Further highlighting the benefit of, if you do have a pre-configured action available to you to reflect a strategy that you are employing, use it, because the safety nets, the calculation, the robustness of the calculation is vastly improved, as opposed to merely adjusting numbers on the client's balance sheet, where obviously those protections can't be built in to the same degree. So here, you can see here a much more accurate and highlighting that the contributions cap has actually been exceeded. The actual thing I'd also recommend is that you'll notice is that when it comes to the automatic rollover of Ron's superannuation into an allocated pension on his retirement age, obviously that has been limited to the $1.6 million automatically by the model as well, with the remaining amount remaining within superannuation. So just to highlight that as well. So I was actually really encouraged by the capability of the modelling tool in terms of reflecting the legislative and the regulatory framework. Any questions or observations in regards to that?
John, it's Paul. When we come to actually doing it, are we going to remember it? So therefore, comment would be nice to have some sort of warning, I guess. That's why.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Paul, because if you were to put in, obviously, $300,000, that what we have termed within the project team, that a suitability test will emerge, or some other mechanism will emerge saying, $300,000 is not fitting in with Ron's true concessional contribution cap. Is there imprecise information in the profile? Why are you doing this? Double check, warning, and all that sort of thing will emerge. But obviously that doesn't currently exist. But I want to demonstrate to you what is there at the moment, and taking opportunity that the building in of what we call suitability rules is something that we're also looking at down the track. So thanks for mentioning that, Paul. How would I represent capital gains tax? The way in which I would do that is by obviously just injecting an event. I would create an event using a lump sum unexpected expense. Again, I'm doing this slide just to demonstrate how quickly it can be done, obviously either in your preparation or in front of the client. It could be 30 grand, or well, actually it's probably a bit steep, call it 10 grand, because it's joint 50% or 50%, or wherever it may be. And obviously we can see that emerging in terms of the timeline to properly account for cash flow, wherever it may be. So there you have it there in terms of what you can actually do. Okay, there you have it there, guys. That is a bit of an instructive case study.